Fire. I remember the fire that went down in my house. I think I was in 6th grade or maybe I was younger. The point is, there was a fire, a huge one. El monte estaba prendido en fuego. And I was scared shitless, thinking my home would get caught in the blaze. Thankfully, los bomberos llegaron a tiempo, and everything was okay. Robbery. I entered my house and the cops were everywhere, tomando huellas a ver quiénes cometieron los actos. I walked into my room and the cops were still there. I had nothing of value, or at least nothing that could amount to much, so nothing was stolen. But when I stepped out of my room, there was Mom crying her eyes out, knowing her engagement ring and other emotionally valuable items had been stolen. I didn't know what to do at the moment, so I just stepped back and asked myself how this had all happened, and if we would be safe in the future. Azabache. Tío Robert tenía un perro lobo gigante y poderoso. Su nombre, Azabache, or at least I think that's how it's written. He was a nice dog, despite looking all menacing if you didn't know ya. En casa de Agüe, he was the guard dog. He had el patio entero to run free, all while protecting Abuela from what could have been potential robberies or God knows what else. But, sadly, when Azabache was taken to Tio's house on the other side of Santa Isabel, the less criminally infected by today's standards, if you can put it like that, Azabache was killed. I think someone was trying to rob Tio, and Azabache, being the loyal dog he was, tried to protect the property, but sadly he was poisoned. Tio cried that death, Titi Madeline cried that death, my primos Robertito, Eduardo, and Laurel cried that death, Abuela cried that death. Heck, everyone in the Correa clan and its affiliates cried that death. That beautiful, nurturing dog didn't deserve to die that way, but sadly, crime knows no bounds. Espinaca. We thought we would get strong like Popeye, but instead, what we got was a weird taste in our mouths. Wicked Correa dance moves en una calle Santa Isabelina. I didn't know shit about dancing, pero cuando empezamos a bailar en esa celebración de Año Nuevo, some sort of energy was let loose en esa calle Santa Isabelina. Se nota que eres nieto de Baldo, me dijo, and that's how I knew where the energy came from. El canasto del patio. Cuando chiquito me pasaba jugando básquet todos los días en el canasto del patio. Tuve muchas competencias con papi. El que haga más tiros de 3 gana. Papi siempre ganaba, hasta que fui creciendo y le quité el trono, y eventualmente empiezo a practicar donqueo. No lo hagas con frecuencia, un día de esto vas a romper el canasto. Al canasto le caía lluvia todos los días y poco a poco le dio moho. Se veía claramente, la parte de abajo casi no se sostenía. Pero a mí no me importaba, yo seguía donkeando y por suerte el canasto nunca me caía encima, aunque tuvo sus días. Pero yo rápido lo detenía. Pero, eventualmente, llegó un día donde tuve que decirle adiós al canasto del patio. Sky High Rides. I remember being a little kid around the age of 12 or 13, summer 04, maybe 05. I was the perfect height to jump on all the rides, adrenaline at an all-time high. I wanted to go on all of them. Pay $10 and you can get on all of them. And that's what happened. I got on all the Sky High rides, all the teen rides, all the adult rides. From the martillo to the bow to the tazas and la paratrupa, aka la sombrilla. Yelled all day, tears of joy too. Got home, felt like mute. But it was all worth it. Now I look at my little cousins, enjoying the rides too, and hope they get to do it as many times as I did it, because there's no way to explain such a feeling. Booby. Funny how life works. You talk with an old friend on the telephone and you don't recognize her until she reminds you of a meaningful experience you shared as a high school teen. Respect. Alex, CRVP, and I always loved and respected the sport of skateboarding. Then one day I tried to actually skateboard. I ripped my pants when I fell off the board and ended up doing a split. I've never tried skating since that day. I've just admired it from the sidelines. That's called respect. The band that lasted one day. There we were, extremely sure we would have our own metal band. Oh yes, we were sure. Chewy was playing drums while Alex and CRVP tried to sing some of Alex's lyrics, and I wrote down multiple band names. We didn't have a set genre, we just knew we wanted to do a metal. To this day, I still remember we wanted to mix some Him, Mago de Oz, Maiden, and Sabbath. It was a fun idea, but none of us, except for Chewy, knew how to play an instrument. At least we had fun, and Chewy entertained the mere thought of us being musicians. Bleachers 2. As a basketball player, I was always one to play fair and focus on defense. But sometimes others can go a bit too wild, like the one time a coach's daughter went for a steal, but actually pushed me all the way to the bleachers when I was around 10 or 11. I guess her dad told her to be ruthless. No me estaría raro. I didn't cry or anything. Much like the audience, I was just in shock that she just pushed me into the bleachers. Rock stars. As kids, people always ask you what you want to be when you grow up. Alex and I would always reply, rock stars. And the people asking would always put up faces, looking like anime characters when they are surprised. I remember one day when we were in school screaming and yelling, I want to be a rock star, as we acted like Elvis Presley and Axl Rose. Those were simpler times. I don't know if Alex still writes or does anything creative, but I've never abandoned that passion for music and art as a whole, and I never will. Toe. All I heard was yelling, so I rushed to the backyard. Feng no veas, my vecino told me as he took Dad to his car. During the next few days, I stayed with my cousins, and when Mom and Dad came back, I had seen what happened. He lost his toe. Days later, Mom and I found his toenail lying around the grass. Los 15 de mi ex. No estábamos juntos, pero that didn't stop me from having a blast eating and dancing like a maniac. Every time I see pics of that day, I'm teleported to that night where I didn't give a fuck about anyone but me and my friends. Thanks for that night, dear ex. Seriously, thank you. People se fue. Dad had rushed with people to the vet. Rick and I just waited for him to come back, patiently raking the leaves off the front yard. When he came back, all we saw was tears coming down his eyes, and he said, People se fue. Eso no es nada. I had never kissed a girl before, but my girlfriend at the time had, so I imagine she knew how to do it. I admit I was scared, so one of our mutual friends encouraged me to do it. It was really weird though. Everyone was staring at us, so she just told us, Dale, eso no es nada. So my girlfriend and I kissed, and it really didn't feel like much. Se le mueven los ojos. I had never been to that place before, but it was a special occasion, and as the saying goes, special occasions deserve a celebration. Or at least that's how I think it goes. Anyway, being at a special occasion and a special location, Mom wanted me to eat something different, despite my want of eating arroz con habichuelas y pollo. So she ordered me arroz con habichuela y pescado. I had never seen a fish with its entire head, and I don't know if it was my imagination, but I thought I saw its eyes move. So I quickly told Mom, se le mueven los ojos. But she just replied, come. And I just got pissed off and didn't eat anything for lunch that day. Esto es del diablo. I was selling Pokemon cards, 25 cents a pop, but the school authorities immediately called for me, and they told me, eso es del diablo, killing my business at the same time. My childhood English teacher. I remember that dude being the best English teacher in school. He was the one who made me love the language. One day as a teen, Mom called me into her and Dad's room, and she told me how that teacher had been arrested for child rape. I guess I did well by avoiding going to his house to play video games. Catch 'em all. I don't know if kids went crazy for Pokemon as I did, but I remember being a young lad, acting like those monsters actually existed, and I used the Pokeballs I bought at stores or from fast foods, and I pretended to catch them all, taking into consideration their descriptions from the Pokedex. I remember capturing a Bulbasaur, Geodude, Weedle, and Caterpie. It was kind of silly, but childhood imagination can provide the best memories. My first near-death experience. I remember being a little kid. My friend Cabeza and I were playing hide and seek, and he was chasing me all around school. However, at one point, it got a little too hardcore, and I ran out of school without looking at what came across the street, almost getting hit by a truck. I immediately stopped as the driver honked. Cabeza just laughed at my embarrassment, so I just walked home. 50-50. 50-50, the coach would yell every time we would score, and defense was required, and by applying this strategy, we were the first basketball equipo San Germeño to go to the playoffs in a while. Dog bite. I don't have the physical scars to prove it, but I do have the mental scars. I remember that shit like it was yesterday. But that's what happens when you jump into uncharted territory. You can get your arm bitten by a dog that's bigger than you. Downhill madness. As kids, my vecinos and I were always challenging each other, pushing each other to the limits. But this one time was pretty stupid. We were driving down the hill of our street in their Batman tricycle. And while they knew when to stop, I was too stupid to accurately time it. So when I tried to stop when a car was coming on the side of the road, I ended up with a huge cut on my right knee. That was the last time we did that, but not the last time I did such a stunt, as I did it once again as a teen with the scooter I got from my parents on Christmas. I didn't get hurt that time, even when the skates were higher. But my parents did give me some noise, and I never did anything like that, or at least I haven't yet. Espalda. I had never experienced that type of pain in my life. My back was killing me, and what was worse was that I didn't know what the fuck caused it. I felt like Goku when he was getting crushed by ape form Vegeta. It was crazy. I remember being in the hospital and yelling, que alguien me inyecte con algo para que se me quite este cabrón dolor que tengo. I immediately knew I shouldn't have done that, but I was desperate and needed some treatment. I never truly understood what happened to me that day, but it was a terrible experience I'll never forget. Girls. It was the night of CRVP's B-Day, and my parents had allowed me to stay at his house, so we would continue celebrating with some video game. But that was the one thing we did the least. We just talked and talked that night. Being teens, we just talked about the girls we were really interested in. We even confessed to liking some of the same girls, and being stupid teens, we told each other what we would do with those girls if the opportunity arose that we should have sex with them. It was an interesting night to say the least. One of the most sincere nights I've lived through. Beer. It was my first metal show out of the west side. I believe it was in Maunabo or somewhere close to it. Alex, CRVP, and I were really into heavy metal, and this was one of the first times we were left all alone in a show. CRVP was excited to watch the show and drink beer, which was apparently cool. Alex was excited to watch the show, drink beer, and meet Lana, a friend he had met through the net. I was just excited for the show. Meeting Lana was cool, but I didn't really get excited to meet her. Alex was all over her from the beginning. He was the one who had the most contact with her after all. So I was only there to enjoy the music, but then came the beer. All three of them had it, and I was cool without having a single drop of it. But I didn't want to be a party pooper, so I took a sip of one of their beers, and it tasted terrible. I had never drunk a beer since that day. Wine? Yes, but never beer. That'll never meet my taste buds ever again. Trash. As kids and teens, we always want to fit in, or at least at one point we feel like we want to. So I once wasted $30 on a cab, which can only be described as trash, just to try and get some pauta. I felt ashamed, and ever since then I've always tried to be myself, and care not for what others think about me in any shape, way, or form. Never throw away your art. If there's one thing I learned as a kid, is to never throw away your art, no matter your personal critique of it. I once threw away notebooks worth of literature and visuals I had done as a kid. I immediately felt regret, and ever since then I've been playing catch up with myself, because I destroyed a key part of my artistic evolution. I was just confused. I barely remember that day, but here it goes. I was around 13 or 14, and I studied in a private Catholic school. As part of it, we were all invited to some sort of ceremony where a priest and some followers provided a set of speeches, and all of a sudden, I saw friends and others crying and having what seemed like seizures. Apparently, the words being spoken helped them reflect so hard that they started releasing their pain and guilt in the form of tears. I remember standing there freaked out because I felt like some cult shit was happening. When we came back to school, some of my friends and the people I knew were still sobbing. I tried to support, a hug here and there, but ultimately I didn't know what to do. I was just confused. Sillas. Veo esas sillas y me llevan a la niñez, sillas plásticas coloridas, donde las nalgas se me hacían nada por estar sentado casi 8 horas al día. Yup, esas sillas escolares me traen recuerdos dolorosos y coloridos. Gracias a Dios que ya no tengo que usarlas.